Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Wait, What Are We Talking About podcast, episode 200. My name is Bret, aka Enigma 9011, and today I'm once again joined by TJ, aka at Turn Base TJ. TJ, how's it going?
It's going good, man.
Good.
I hope it's going good for you.
Yeah, it is. I appreciate you hopping on. We're going to have some lengthy discussions for our topics today, I feel, which I'm definitely looking forward to jumping into with you and picking your brain on some of them. So, yeah, thanks for hopping on. I appreciate it. And on such a big episode of 200. Awesome.
Thanks for the invite.
Yeah,
I appreciate it. It's an honor to get a good number like that.
Yeah. Chat, if you guys want to join in on the discussion and watch the podcast live, you can go over to twitch.tv/Enigma9011. You can drop a follow, join in on the fun and chaos. But if you can't catch it live, that is A-OK. Go over to YouTube and podcast services the very next week where it's broken out topic by topic and put as one big video in MP3 for your amusement on the following Friday. Last but not least, you see that sub button, that follow button? If you guys can hit that, that would help out the channel immensely. Helps us grow, helps us keep going. So, simple click, do that, and you get, tuned in with all the episodes and all that stuff. They're right there in your feed. So yeah, do that. But yes, TJ is back. We got a full episode talking some games, talking some comics. We're going to jump into the games right now. If you've been watching stream lately, I have recently jumped into Baldur's Gate 3, thanks to TJ and his Channel Point Redemption. So we're going to be talking about Baldur's Gate 3 today. It's hard to say no spoilers because everybody kind of has their own journey and adventure in this game, it seems. So it's kind of up to you what you're going to experience in this game. So we're just going to have a fun conversation about it. So yeah, TJ, let's, I guess, just start right off the bat. What are your impressions of Baldur's Gate 3?
I absolutely love the game. Like a lot of people, obviously it's winning Game of the Year and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But I think the thing that I love the most about it is it made me discover an entire new genre of games. I'd never played those games before because I didn't want to get through the... usually this subgenre has an issue with like budgets.
Mm-hmm.
So a lot of the times in Baldur's Gate, everything's voice acted and like camera shot. But in a lot of the games, like Rogue Trader I'm playing right now, or like the Owlcat Pathfinder games, it'll just be text.
Oh, okay.
And it's like a lot of text, but there'll be like instances or events that are just text. So it'll be like your party ran up, got attacked by some bandits or whatever. And instead of seeing that, you're just reading the text about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So that always kind of took me out of it. But then Baldur's Gate, obviously the production value is so high. I gave it a try and I was like, this type of game is actually incredible. The amount of stuff you can do in it. It's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, even just dipping my toes into it this past week. Yeah, seeing all the options like we've talked about on stream, just knowing the little bit I do of D&D and having that experience and seeing it translate into a game, the amount of options and spells and obviously dialogue choices, like it's incredible what this team in Larian Studios has put into this title, and I can't imagine how many work hours it took and like charting everything out and stuff like that. It's insane.
Yeah, especially because I did stuff really out of order for my first playthrough.
Okay.
Like I went and did stuff and I came back around and did stuff I should have done earlier probably. And all of the characters, every NPC acknowledged the actions that I had already previously done. They're like, hey, we need you to do this quest. I'm like, oh, but you already found this person. You just didn't grab them. So like, go back and get them basically. And I was like, that's really, they all kind of, react to what you do and what you're doing and what you did. And I just didn't expect that.
Mm-hmm. Nice. So you mentioned your first playthrough. How many playthroughs and hours have you put into this game if you had to guesstimate?
Okay, I've only made the two characters and I haven't gotten very far with my second. He's probably about as far as your character is.
Okay.
Your druid is the second character. But I wanted to make a completely evil character because this is not really a spoiler. You already did the first mission or whatever, but one of the central conflicts of the first act, because there's multiple, but one of them is there's a goblin camp and there's a good guy camp, like a druid camp. And you can side with either camp and have one destroy the other, or you can destroy both of them, or you can save both. So it's really cool. I wanted to do that and kind of get a completely different second playthrough. But sorry, to answer the question, it's just the two characters. My main character is at the very end of Act 2.
Oh, wow. So okay, so you haven't even finished it yet.
Hours.
Okay, damn.
Nope.
Okay. Okay.
Wow. There's a lot of people I know who have not finished the game, but they have like 5 characters because they keep re-rolling
Sure.
Act 1.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah,
especially if you.
Go ahead, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, especially if you haven't played D&D, like, how do you know if you're gonna like a sorcerer more than a crusader or whatever? You got to try it out.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, you mentioned like making the evil character. Like even off stream, yeah, I'm already thinking of like, oh, well, maybe my own playthrough, do it this way or whatever it is. It's crazy, yeah. Just thinking of, like you said, those different scenarios, how you take it, and you mentioned the Goblin Camp just for the one example. Thinking outside the box. Shout out to the Trophy Room, a PlayStation podcast. Kyle and Joe went through their Game Award show as of recording. It came out last week. And they both, Baldur's Gate ended up being their game of the year. But they were talking about like just, yeah, the amount of freedom, thinking of what out of the box things you could do. Oh, there's an enemy under a chandelier. Maybe instead of attacking the enemy, I should attack the chandelier to hit them, or solve this puzzle this way. Or like you mentioned with encampment, you get to pick what you do. Like my brain just automatically was like, oh, help those guys. Didn't even consider like, what are my options here? And to see a studio like this do something like that, where it's so open to the player that you can pretty much make your own story, it's fascinating. It's also scary too, because I know people are like, well, then I'm gonna miss all this other stuff. I guess that's where the replayability comes in, but it's interesting to see everybody walk away with slightly, or some different elements of their experience from this. And then, yeah, obviously making the new characters to jump back into it. It's good that it has this kind of livelihood, and hopefully it sticks around for a while,
Yeah, definitely. I feel like Larian games in particular as well. Like before, I couldn't afford Baldur's Gate 3 right when it came out. I had to wait like 3 weeks or so.
Sure.
But I was like so hyped to play it that I ended up playing their previous title, Divinity Original Sin 2.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
And same developers, same combat system pretty much, although it's not licensed by D&D, so they have like different spell names and stuff.
Okay.
But very difficult game. That is a game that I had to play. I played it for 20 hours and then I had to delete my character and start again.
Oh.
Because you just don't really understand how the mechanics of the game are going to work, especially not playing a CRPG before.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I need to play this game for like 40 hours to figure out how I should build my character even to begin with.
Sure.
So then I would have to go back and kind of respect my character like that. And I feel like a lot of players have had the same experience with Baldur's Gate as well. They're like, I didn't realize I was going to kind of need this thing leveling up or this class.
Gotcha.
So you kind of, the second playthrough, I feel like with Larian games are kind of the true playthrough, because now you're like, now that I know what I'm doing, like,
Yeah.
I kind of know what to expect.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, I didn't realize I'm looking at the games they developed here. So you mentioned the Divine Divinity series. So they got Divine Divinity Beyond Divinity, Divinity 2, Dragon Commander Original Sin. They didn't make the other Baldur's Gate. I didn't realize that.
No, actually, the people who made Baldur's Gate went on to make Mass Effect and Dragon Age.
Okay.
But if you've played a recent Dragon Age game like Dragon Age Inquisition or Mass Effect Andromeda, they have strayed very far away from this kind of hardcore, more niche RPG experience. So
interesting.
It's kind of nice that studios like Larian have gone in to kind of fill that void while BioWare does whatever BioWare is doing right now.
Sure. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah, I wonder, at least from a development standpoint, because you mentioned you played the Divinity series. Like, okay, well, I guess that could be a question. How similar would you say Baldur's Gate 3 is to your experience with the Divinity series?
Very similar. Like gameplay wise, they use the same exact type of movement. You know how you had like this is how much movement you have left, and it's not really on a grid. It's kind of free flowing. All that's the same. It's just as open and varied. Everything is voice acted in Divinity Original Sin 2, which is fantastic, including the narrator. But that's really the big difference, I would say, between that and Baldur's Gate 3. Is Baldur's Gate 3, the camera will zoom in, and every single person you talk to is voice acted and motion captured. Even the squirrels you talk to, I don't think they're motion captured, but they are voice acted, and they're animated. And so in Divinity Original Sin 2, it maintains the bird's eye view, and you just hear the dialogue. And a lot of times too, the reason they had a narrator is because of animation limitations. So they couldn't animate all of the small things the characters are doing. So the narrator will just say like the character grimaces at you and puts the knife in their pocket or whatever instead of you seeing that.
Okay.
So it's that kind of production quality, but that's really the only difference in the games, honestly, that I've noticed.
Okay. Interesting. So with you have a little bit of experience, we've talked off stream with D&D and games of that nature. How do you feel that Baldur's Gate like took those elements from the tabletop to the video game side? How do you feel they translated those, and do you think it's a steep learning curve for people?
It's definitely a steep learning curve. Because even when I know Dungeons and Dragons 5th edition, which Baldur's Gate is based off of, is notorious for being like super rules light and like easier for people to get into and stuff. But even me, as someone who's played a lot of RPGs like in high school and stuff, Dungeons and Dragons always felt like it was too complicated for me. Which I know, like I said, I know it sounds dumb especially when people are playing Pathfinder and stuff, but like I just never really had a head for the whole, like when you're playing the tabletop game, it's like, okay, this person, you can only move 6 meters or whatever, and this person, I'm like, I can't, I don't want to.
Sure.
I want to make fart jokes at the item shop or whatever. Like I'm not trying to get a specific combat thing. So yeah, I would say it's definitely difficult to pick up in that respect. And as that, because combat's never been like the reason I play RPGs to begin with, I would say that a lot of games don't really nail that kind of, you can't nail the openness of a dungeon master as an NPC. They could say or do anything. They can, obviously you can't program that into a video game. So I feel like Baldur's Gate did a very good job as possible with giving you as many options as they could think of in a given scenario without, being truly limitless. I feel like that aspect has been better than any other game I've played previously. But again, I think it's just this genre I didn't realize existed. And it really does do that. Games like Disco Elysium or the Pathfinder games, they really do allow you to have those kind of dialogue options and stuff.
Yeah, it's crazy, like you said, or like we've said, seeing all the options and stuff. And you brought up the Dungeon Master. Like, I think this is a nice hybrid way to include the randomness, like you said, or maybe not randomness, but the obscurity that a DM can sometimes go into of like the creativity. Like having these options available to us, I'll agree, just adds that extra layer without having another actual person on the other side. It gives that illusion of a DM with the openness, if that makes sense. And that definitely is appreciated. And then, yeah, like you said, the learning curve's steep, and I don't want that to be like, oh, don't check this game out. Like, there's a lot of information, I feel, with, like, the amount of spells, especially, and skills that you can get at times. But it's one of those things, just like anything, if you put some time into it, gradually things will connect, make sense. Like, I know, for example, what's his name? Gale, the wizard I have. Like, that guy's got so many spells. I think I've only used, like, Firebolt as his offensive skill, because I'm just like, I like this one, and it works. It's kind of just, like, finding what works for you and going off of that. And then, obviously, if you want to kind of experiment and play with the other stuff, then it's there and available to you. But, yeah, it's just a matter of giving yourself time to learn that kind of stuff, I guess, to pick up on
and I feel like even when you're playing, it doesn't take that long, I feel like, for a lot of the systems to kind of make themselves known. Like the resting system, I know you're still getting your head around
Sure.
the long rest and stuff, done it a couple times, but you'll notice the icons in the bottom of the screen where, I mean, you've already been reading through it and stuff, where it's like, okay, I can do 3 spells of this level, and it'll tell you when you hover over the spell, it'll say until short rest, until long rest, or whatever. So eventually you get to, it doesn't take that long. By the end of Act 1, if you decide to use like a wizard, which again, they are the hardest character to use because of the amount of options they have and spell management. But if you do, you'll start to realize you're like, oh, okay, I'm going to use these 2 spells in this combat. I'll save this 1 spell in case we get ambushed, and then I'm going to short rest and I'll do these spells. And that kind of like, all the systems meshing together like that, really, it just kind of starts to work really well.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, right now in my party, obviously I got my main character. I have Shadowheart, which is like a cleric, if I'm not mistaken. Lysel, the bruiser tank, and then Gale, the wizard. So I know there's other characters in here. What characters have you gravitated towards outside of obviously your original character?
Asterion, and also Asterion.
Okay.
Now he is the best. He is. I don't even know. Do you know much about Asterion or?
I know he won an award, and that's about it. No, he's like used a lot in promotional art. I feel him and his white
Okay,
locks.
I really want to say like one of the base character things you'll
Sure.
know about him as soon as you meet him, but it is better if you just see him, have it
Okay.
play out by him.
Okay.
So I won't spoil it,
Mm.
but just his character and a lot of things with it. I also really love Will
Mm.
though as well, because Will is also a warlock,
Okay.
which is my favorite D&D class, and it's cool because the companions, you've obviously seen it with Gale a little bit, but they put some story elements and stuff into the companions. They have their own kind of adventures and stories to go down. So seeing Will actually have like the warlock stuff play out into the game,
Mm-hmm.
where you see things that you would read about like warlocks dealing with in D&D, and you're like, that's really cool. And there's a decision earlier on where there's a companion named Karlak,
Okay.
and she's a tiefling,
Mm.
and she's just a big. You think Lysel is a bruiser? Just wait till you meet Karlak. She's a
Okay.
barbarian, so
Oh, okay.
she crushes. Um, and whether or not she's technically a demon because she's a tiefling.
Mm-hmm.
And Will is a demon hunter. So
Oh.
how
Mm.
you deal if you already have Will in your party when you come across Karlak, how you deal with that interaction because he is a warlock and has to do things due to his patron,
Mm.
can have drastic outcomes on the appearance and class of certain party members and stuff.
Okay.
So that's pretty cool. So Will is definitely up there. I would say his story is pretty awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I mean that's like half the cash right there.
Mm-hmm.
I think the other ones are great. I also did like that was my party. Was I chose Astarion, Will, and I went with Lysel for like a frontline fighter.
Okay.
Because, and you'll see pretty early on, fighters can they can get like 2 or 3 attacks a turn. So I'm
Sure.
getting up to like 4 attacks a turn. I'm killing 4 enemies a turn with this one fight. It's like that's awesome.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Yeah, I do appreciate you mentioned or alluded to the Gale stuff. Like you mentioned, at least on stream, like I haven't seen this before. Like that's crazy to see how they put the depth into these characters and gave them their each own like stories and narratives. It's not spoiler because it's early on, but Shadowheart and Lysel obviously button heads constantly. No offense, Lysel's kind of a hard ass, but like
Oh no, she absolutely is.
yeah, it's fun seeing like, especially with Gale, just because that's what I've obviously experienced. But seeing that he's got some backstory, he has some struggles, and then running into one certain scenario with him dying, like that leading to this short little thing. I really enjoyed that, and I'm looking forward to experiencing more with the other characters. And I think that's important because instead of them just being bodies, like they have a reason to be there and like importance, which I feel like a lot of games do well, but or a lot of games do, but when games do it really well, that's what makes the whole experience so much better. When you come to the conclusion of it and wrap it up, you're like, damn, I didn't just do a journey with myself in this game and my character, like all these other things too, just on top of it. Yeah, I'm interested to see how that continues
Like
throughout.
it gets kind of really crazy when you consider that like that team that I have of Will, Astarion, and Lysel. I use those 3 constantly because I've leveled them up so their abilities complement each other. I've made them like synergize with each other.
Mm-hmm.
So it highly incentivizes me to keep using them for the rest of the game. So I probably will,
Mm-hmm.
and go through all the storylines, which means there's 7 of these kind of like Gale level voice acted companions.
Mm,
And you can only have 3 on your team at a time. So that means you could potentially do 2 runs and still not have really fully developed one of the companions.
sure.
Um, on top of so yeah, when you do a second run, you can have a completely different team. But on top of that, you can also through Withers, who you met, the skeleton guy, you can actually hire like nameless, faceless people to be on your
Oh,
team.
oh, okay.
So if you wanted to, you could play solo, or you could play with just like 3 random NPCs. If you didn't want to use the name characters and stuff. So there's a
Huh,
lot of options where, yeah, you could be 4 or 5 playthroughs in and still be using different companions. It's kind of crazy.
that's cool. That's cool. Now, when you going back to your character, when you made your first character, what were you aiming to create for yourself?
I mean, yeah, just narcissistically, I was definitely trying to recreate the D&D character from when I was like 17. I thought
Okay.
that would be kind of cool. And that's what you see on screen right now.
Mm-hmm.
There's a wood elf warlock. He finds his patron that gives him powers in the woods as a wood elf. Not the deepest storyline, but you know what? It works.
Mm-hmm.
It was pretty cool. That's pretty much all I was trying to create with that. As I just knew I wanted to make a warlock.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Also, the fun thing about warlocks that I like is that even though they are a caster, they are a charisma-based caster,
Okay.
like the bard. So that means that, yeah, I should obviously level up charisma the most, and that's what my spells use. So my character automatically is just going to be passing a bunch of speech checks and persuasion and stuff like that just through me trying to optimize my magic. So I really liked that kind of synergy in the gameplay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Now, when you're playing with your original character, is there a what's the term? I guess alignment, for lack of a better term. Is there a certain alignment that you tend to lean towards with
Oh
your
yeah,
answers and prompts, or is it kind of free balling?
I try my best to go off of my character sheet, which was chaotic good.
Mm,
So it is good, but a little bit of chaos.
mm-hmm.
I tend in video games though, especially because I know I'm doing like the evil playthrough for the second one, I tend to be a little bit more like nicer Mary
Sure.
Sue than the chaotic stuff. So I feel like I've probably played more of a good like a good neutral or something, or like
Sure.
a good lawful good. But it's I've been trying
Yeah.
to.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of players do that. Like, I definitely struggle with that. Like, you've seen it on stream. I'm like, I feel like I should say that, but this feels like a better way to put it. And I know Jeff, another regular, like, he's like, I hate doing renegade runs. I just can't. Um, but yeah, this feels like a game that, I don't know, is a little bit more rewarding for doing that evil stuff. Like, I know there's been other games where there's been a evil route. Like, I'm going to shout out Infamous Second Son. Like, playing through that as, oh crap, what's his name? Delson? Yeah. Playing his evil route, the story's like barely different by doing the bad stuff compared to the good stuff. So it doesn't feel
Mm.
like there's any incentive to do it. But with this, it's more of a, I think, a morbid curiosity to see what the other options are, with the freedom of like, oh, you could do this, you could do this, do this. See how, like you said, it affects the world around you and how people talk about certain things or acknowledge your actions. So yeah, this one definitely seems to have a better balance of reward, I guess, for taking the the negative path instead of the good.
Well, I feel like it's more like like in Dishonored, right? If
Mm-hmm.
you take the negative path, you're like actively murdering people and causing plague and stuff. Like that is evil, like objectively. It's just bad. You're just
Sure.
being a bad guy. Um, D&D, I feel like doesn't really have such a strict like black and white
Mm,
view of people's actions, which is really cool to see played out in this game because like being bad technically might not be bad. Like who's to say that siding with the goblins is bad? Like goblins are still alive. They still have their own objectives and stuff too. What if you're a goblin? Like what if you're a
sure.
goblin sympathizer? So there's there's that, but there's also outside of the goblin camp even there's a lot of factions. There's a location which do you know who Drizzt Do'Urden is?
Mm-mm.
Okay, there's a book series from like the 90s into like the early 2010s. That's all I knew about D&D for a long time.
Gotcha.
But I was gonna say that the a location from that book is in the first act. I'm trying to
Hmm.
do this without
Oh, you're
spoilers.
fine. You're fine.
But you meet other races other fantasy races and stuff.
Mm.
And depending on whether or not you're being quote unquote good or bad, like you could just side with them and like they're gonna treat you well and they're gonna treat you nicely, even though they're the quote unquote bad guys. So you don't
Gotcha.
feel like you're doing like an evil run per se. There's
Hmm.
also a companion that you can only get if you side with the drow and the goblins and stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
she is a drow herself. She's a dark elf, so she is kind of a more evil aligned character. But
Hmm.
I mean, that's a like a reward basically for playing evil because you can't get her if you play a regular Mary Sue good guy playthrough.
But you can change her, TJ. No.
Oh, when you see her, you will try and change her.
Oh boy. Um, so with the game, you said you're still in Act 2 right now, right?
Yeah, I'm at the boss fight, Ketheric.
Okay,
Act
boss
2.
fight of Act 2. Okay. So it's hard to say without like obviously reaching the conclusion of the game. I was going to say like what is there anything more that you wish this game included or things that you wish were a little different in your experience playing this game?
Yeah, it's kind of hard to answer without finishing it.
Sure.
But just for personal taste, I do like my grid-based systems.
Okay.
Um, for turn-based stuff, I have been playing Owlcat's Warhammer 40K Rogue Trader.
Hmm.
And they made the Pathfinder games, and that game is all set on a grid. And I enjoy combat in Rogue Trader like almost twice as much as Baldur's Gate because of that grid and abilities and stuff. There's also one thing I like about Rogue Trader that I wish they put in Baldur's Gate, but I understand the difference because in Rogue Trader there's guns, there's pew pews, and in Baldur's Gate it's just swords mostly. But when you start a combat in Baldur's Gate, the combat just starts wherever you're standing. Like if
Yep.
you're just standing in the open like a dumbass, then you're just gonna get hit in the open like a dumbass.
Yep.
In Rogue Trader, you do get a second to like the combat will start, and then you kind of have like a turn zero where you can move your characters not very far,
Sure.
but you can move them into cover, or you can put your tank up front and the backline guy in the back.
Yeah.
And I really wish they would add that kind of thing to Baldur's Gate because I can't tell you the amount of times I've started a combat and I've got a Starion who is a rogue with two knives, and he's in the front line right in front of everybody, like right in front of a troll. And then I've got I've got Lizelle with her greatsword all the way in the back, and she's got to spend 2 turns trying to run up. It's a nightmare. So
Definitely. Yep, I had that with the door. We're all just piled in the doorway and we got to funnel our way through. Yeah, definitely. Oh, God. I just walked in this room to see what was in here, and I didn't know there was a fight.
yeah, it's like just give me an option to organize my characters before the fight starts.
Sure.
That's all.
Yeah, that definitely would be appreciated. Do you think they will add any DLC to this title, or do you think they're just gonna move on to the next project?
No, only because the developers have said so.
Oh,
But,
okay. Well, there you go.
no, they've said so for a good reason though.
Sure.
Because I think the max level in Baldur's Gate is 12, and the reason because I think the max level in 5th edition D&D is 20.
Yeah.
But the level, because again it is a game with paper and pens and dice and your imagination, you can do some really stupid crazy stuff in D&D 5th edition when you start getting to level 15, 16, 17. So they were like, we just literally can't introduce these spells into this system and make them feel like they would be in the book
Sure.
without breaking the entire system.
Mm-hmm.
Or watering down the spells. And at that point, it's like, why even have the spells if you're going to have them watered down and crappy?
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, so that's why they capped it at 12. And also, looking at Divinity Original Sin 2, they add stuff into the game, but they don't add stuff past the conclusion
Okay.
for all their DLC. So they added, like, the Talk to Animals thing. That was like an extra thing that was added to Divinity Original Sin 2. So it's like, oh, now you can go back through and play the game, but you can talk to every single animal. And it's like, oh, that's kind of a cool thing to do.
Okay.
They also added a DM mode to Divinity Original Sin 2, which is cool, where one person could be the dungeon master and create a dungeon grid and scenarios and stuff.
Okay.
So I could see them doing stuff like that, but I feel like they're gonna kind of keep the conclusion. Oh, and they already did add an epilogue,
Oh, okay.
which is I forget how long they said the epilogue was. I can't imagine it's like too terribly long,
Sure.
but apparently it like combines a lot of the actions that you did in the game.
Okay.
Um, Kind of sums it up really well at the end. So I feel like they're gonna do stuff like that and maybe
Sure.
more add more stuff into the game instead of adding like a DLC to it.
Okay. Well, that's cool. That's cool. Um, crap. I had something I forgot. Is there a class or class and race that you find yourself you're like, that doesn't really sound interesting to play as?
Ooh, I don't think I could play as a half orc.
Okay.
I just not me. Or a dwarf really. I guess melee characters I'm not really.
All right.
um that's pretty much it really. I'm kind of excited to try all the different things. I really want to try Ranger has always been kind of one of my favorite classes.
Mm-hmm.
Just like a bow person, you get an animal and stuff.
Yep.
But they also have always sucked in D&D and like stats wise.
Sure.
And they especially suck in 5th edition, and I've heard that they haven't really fixed it in Baldur's Gate 3, so it's still one of the weakest classes. So that's kind of a bummer.
Yeah.
I would love to play a ranger and not feel like in Divinity Original Sin 2, they had well, they didn't really have classes, but you could make a magic archerer, and I thought that was the coolest shit ever. So like, I wish you could do more stuff like that. Like, give me a magic ranger character would be very cool.
Mm-hmm. All right. Yeah. I think that's all I got for Baldur's Gate. TJ, anything you want to add to wrap up on Baldur's?
No, I'm glad you're gonna play it some more. That's cool. And this is gonna sound unfortunate because I know you said you hated Mass Effect for this reason, but
Yeah.
you gotta talk to everybody.
I know.
I just want to say, you know, like that one strip you walked through, there's the people fighting on the left. You had that one person that Lizelle yelled at on the right, and then you went ahead to the prison thing, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Along that strip, you had a companion you could have gotten. There was a shopkeeper, an item keeper. There was a bunch of just different small stuff like the character interactions, like was Lizelle. There was 2 quests. There was a thing broken into. There's like so much just in that small area.
Right.
So it's definitely yeah, I don't know. It is a lot because it's like with the Grove, I think there's probably like 30 or 40 NPCs in there probably. Maybe not. Maybe it's like 20.
Okay.
But like all of them they have something to say, even if it's just a small character moment. But a lot of them have stuff that will give you hints about other things in the world or quests or items and stuff.
Yeah.
A lot of times, like one of the person had PTSD, was a songwriter, help her out, and then like you might hear songs later on and stuff. So it's like cool stuff like that.
Yeah, that's the intimidating thing I'm finding about this game. Like, just the paths of like, okay, I went into this one area and there's 4 different paths. Which way do I go? And then to have that layer of talking to everybody is just a lot of stuff going on, which I mean is good, but yeah, intimidating because it's just like, where do I go? Obviously, as you know, and if you watch the stream, you guys know, I'm heading to the druids to be like, okay, can we get the tieflings, a better home or keep them around? And I'm over somewhere in the fucking wilderness, nowhere near them. I just went the wrong way. So it's gonna...
that is the right way. That is the right way for sure. But, yeah, I don't know. I think I was gonna say. Moving on.
Yeah. So, yeah, definitely looking forward to more to Baldur's Gate. And, yeah, viewers, if you guys have jumped into Baldur's Gate, let us know what kind of characters you created, what your adventure is looking like, and hopefully you're having a great time with, like TJ mentioned earlier, Game of the Year for a lot of people. But, yeah.